Hey everyone, I'm Royce from Jesus and a Cup of Joe. I'm driving a brand new Ram 1500 from Tron Collie, Dodge Jeep and Ram. If you're looking for a truck or a Jeep or an SUV that's built to last, go see my friends over at Tron Collie. They'll treat you right. They're located in Cumming, Georgia, or you can shop online at troncolliecdjr.com. When you get there, tell them Royce from Jesus and a Cup of Joe sent you. Tron Collie, driven to serve.
He's been there, boots on the ground, bunker gear on his back, coffee in hand, and faith in his heart. This is the RB experience. From dog tags to bunker gear, the real-life stories of Royce Bottoms. Army veteran, firefighter, minister, and the kind of guy who's seen the wild side of life and lived to tell about it, with a grin and a gospel truth. From close calls and good laughs to hard lessons and quiet prayers, this podcast brings you behind the scenes of service and straight into the heart of faith. Brought to you by Beyond the 12 Ministry, these episodes remind us that even in the toughest times, God's never out of reach, and a good story always brings us closer. So grab your coffee, pull up a chair, and get ready. This is the RB Experience, and it's just getting started.
Hey, I want to welcome all of you back to the RB Experience. Glad you're able to join me. Man, I hope you guys have had a fantastic week. It's been a minute since I've been with you guys. I think it was back in June, if memory serves me correctly. Yeah, June 20th was the last episode that I did. It was talking about the first day at Station 8, talking about the fire service. And before that, I did one at the beginning of June, talking about ground zero of starting the RB Experience. So, quick backstory so all of you guys are caught up. Everybody knows what's going on. If you are new to this podcast, first and foremost, welcome. If you're returning, thank you so much for returning. So, my name is Royce Bottoms. I am the host of the RB Experience, which is a sub-podcast of the Beyond the 12 Ministries. Also, I do a main podcast called Jesus and a Cup of Joe, where I talk about Jesus, the Bible, and life. And I decided to do the RB Experience because I was asked by several people in the past about doing a podcast where I talked about my time in the fire service and my time in the military. And so I said, hey, why not, And so that's how the RB Experience came about. And so from time to time, I'll talk about my days in the Army, or I may talk about some days in the fire service. I never use any names of anyone without written permission. So when I talk about certain people or whatever, I may not mention their names. And the reason why is because I believe I should get permission before using people's names on a podcast. With that being said, I am working on trying to get people on here. It's hard. Some people don't want to do a podcast. They love to talk, but they don't want to hear themselves being recorded or listen to themselves. So we'll try it. But if you are from the public safety sector or a veteran from the military or currently serving and you want to be a part of the show, by all means, I want to encourage you to reach out to me at admin@bt12.org. That is admin@beyondthe12.org. And that's my ministry that you can send that email to, and we'll definitely talk and figure out how to work it out to get you on the show. So, I'm not going to talk probably about the fire service a whole lot today. I'm just going to talk some about the military, but I'm primarily going to be focusing this on, in my opinion, something that's more crucial than anything else that's going on in the world today, and that's the mental health crisis that we have with our first responders and our veterans. But if you've listened to the episode talking about the first days of Station 8, it's kind of funny because I went to the grocery store earlier today, and I ran across two gentlemen from the same fire department that I retired from, and they are from the last fire station I was actually stationed at. They're from station number 9. And I thought it was interesting just having a talk with these gentlemen. Now, obviously, they're younger. They wasn't around when I was there, but it's good to see new blood in the fire service. And so I was just kind of catching up, asking who all was left. I was throwing out some names. They were telling me, hey, this person's here or they're retired, so on and so forth. And we were talking about the very first call of Station 8, how we used to be a one man to the engines. You had stations that only had one person to start with. Now, in that day and time, it seemed to be the best way to do it because of the lack of funding. Now, obviously, we know that it's dangerous, but um, but anyway, they're stationed at a newer Station 9. I was there at the old station back in the day, and we were talking about it, and they invited me over to come take a look at the new facilities, which I thought was nice, and I may take them up on it. But I just wanted to share that with you because that felt good just to be able to talk shop with people. But like I said, if you don't know me, I'm Royce. I'm a 20-year veteran of the fire service, 14-year veteran of the United States Army. I'm 100% disabled, but I am still able to work, thank God. And I do a lot of work with my ministry, my online ministry, to help people. And the primary goal of Beyond the 12 is real simple: to go beyond what the 12 disciples did and spread the gospel of Jesus. Now, with that being said, understand I'm not going to talk a whole lot of scriptures on this podcast. Now, on Jesus and a Cup of Joe, I do, but this will not be a raunchy podcast. So I won't get like down and dirty and cussing and all that because I don't believe in it. But I will talk about calls from time to time that may be a little raw. I'll do everything I can to keep it in a PG rating, and so on and so forth. But the primary focus for today's episode, this is September, and it's National Suicide Prevention Month, okay? So if you don't take away anything I've said for the past 5 minutes, I want you to pay close attention to these 3 digits I'm about to give you. 988. This is the number to the National Crisis Hotline, okay? There are millions upon millions of people who suffer from some type of mental crisis, a mental health crisis. I have PTSD, anxiety, and depression. I share that with people because I'm not ashamed of it. I do have a great network and a support for me, but there are some people out there that do not have this. And I tried to get out there as much as I can to bring awareness to this because we need to be able to get our first responders and our veterans and everyone, to be quite honest with you, the help that they need. And so it's kind of funny because as a veteran, I get asked this question quite a bit, and it doesn't irritate me. It really doesn't. It just, sometimes it gets old, but I get it. They'll ask me, they'll say, well, if you have PTSD, why do you play video games? And I play Call of Duty, okay? And so for some people, they're like, well, you play Call of Duty, but you have PTSD. If you're from the military, I don't understand this. Well, let me explain something to you. Number one, I game. When I say I game, I'm on every night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm on with a group of guys, all right? There's about 6 or 7 of us total, but there's 4 of us at a time that are playing. And majority of the guys that I game with are veterans. And we spend the 2 or 3 hours that we game that night, because usually we go from about 7:30 to about 9:30, sometimes 10. But we spend a lot of time just talking shop, shooting the bull, just joking on each other, having a good time. Are we competitive in the game? Well, I consider myself competitive because I like to win, but sometimes we don't. But it's the fact that we get together and we talk. And we talk about each other's day and what's going on, how the families are doing. And I share all this with you for a reason, because I have a great network of a therapist and support for what I'm going through. But doing this every night is a way for me to unwind, to relax, to sit down, maybe have a beverage, and sit here and play on the computer, do some Call of Duty, talk some smack to these guys. And these guys, I'll go ahead and share this with you. I could do this. Some of them are from Tennessee. Majority of them are from Florida. And there's a couple of them from Georgia. We're right down the road from where I live. And when I say right down the road, obviously they're in South Georgia and I'm in North Georgia. But it's just a group of us that get on pretty much every night and we just game and have a good time. All right. And I'm a firm believer that I believe everyone should have some type of network like that. If you may not be into video games, and that's quite all right. But I think everybody needs to find those people that they can relate to, that they can talk with, just to sit down and just say, hey, let's just talk, And it's not really so much therapy of, all right, well, tell me what's going on and let me psychoanalyze you. It has nothing to do with that. It's getting on, BS and having a good time. And at the end of the day, feel like, hey, you know what? Whatever happened at work, whatever happened in the world doesn't bother me today because I'm just chilling and relaxing. Okay. I'm just chilling and relaxing. So 988 guys, I want you to remember that. Okay. So, no script for this. I never do a script whatsoever. I always just shoot from the hip. Whatever my brain comes up with, that's what I kind of go with. Sometimes I ramble on, sometimes I don't. But let's talk about the military, because I think I talked about basic training and all of this and AIT and all this other stuff. And so, well, let's talk about Germany, because I was stationed in Mannheim, Germany. It was 70th Trans Aviation. It was the Coleman Army Airfield in Mannheim, Germany. We were the only Army airfield there was in Europe. And I was with, like I said, the 70th Trans, and my dorm, my barracks, my room that I had faced the airfield on one side, and then on the other side of my, I had one window that faced the airfield, and the other window faced the hangars, and then on the backside of the hangars was something called the Coleman Confinement Facility. It was the only prison for the military in Europe. So if you did something wrong to go to jail, you went to Coleman Confinement Facility before they shipped you off to Fort Leavenworth, which is the big prison that sits in Kansas. It's kind of like the Roach Motel. Once you check in, it's very hard for you to check out. So it's a good way to keep yourself in line too and in shape, because I'm telling you, you look out at that every day and you see how the prisoners got treated. You didn't want any part of that, right? So my job was in active duty. My job was a refueler. Back in the day, it was called a 77 Foxtrot, petroleum supply specialist. Went to Fort Lee, Virginia to learn how to move fuel, deal with fuel, pack fuel, drive around with it, do whatever I had to do with aviation fuel, MoGas, which is standard gasoline, diesel, kerosene, so on and so forth. Okay. So my job was to refuel aircrafts. Our aircrafts, let's see, what did we have? We had the Chinooks, one of my favorite helicopters. We had the Chinooks. Back then we had Hueys before they phased those out. We had the first edition Blackhawks. We had the OH-58 Deltas, the small little birds, and we had a couple of fixed wings. The fixed wings airplanes were mainly for the officers and command staff to fly around. So pretty much my airfield had majority of Chinooks and Hueys. When being an aviation unit, you're always top heavy because, all the pilots are officers. So my battalion commander was a one-star general. My company commander was a full-bird colonel. And that was just the way I first was introduced into the military. Lieutenants and captains. If you are one, I don't mean this in disrespect, but lieutenants and captains were not really high on the food chain, because like I said, when you're dealing with light colonels, full birds, majors, things of this nature, captains and lieutenants, they were pretty much just pilots, warrant officers. We called them the rank without a home, because they pretty much did whatever they wanted to and didn't really answer to anybody. So I was stationed there for probably the first year out of my 2 years. And then I got transferred over to Spinelli Barracks, 574 Supply Company, which was on the other side of Mannheim. So I started off on the north end of Mannheim, ended up on the south end of Mannheim about a year later. Doing pretty much the same job, but I'll get into that later. So 70 Trans was kind of cool, man, because like I said, I loved helicopters. So I was surrounded by helicopters all the time. Now, I will tell you, it is something to get used to, having these helicopters take off in the middle of the night and shake the barracks and so on and so forth. Now, this was in the 90s. Like I said, this was 92 to 94. Internet was not a really big thing. It was the military had something very similar to the internet that they could use. There was no cell phones. We did have satellite, which was, I forgot who the distributor was, but we only had satellite in one room of the barracks, and that was called the common room. And I remember all it played was BBC. Now, you could have your regular television. They had an antenna on top of the roof. You could get German channels. Now, if you could understand German, you were doing great. But there was only one channel that spoke English, and it was called AFN, Armed Forces Network. And this was being broadcast, I believe, I want to say out of Frankfurt, Germany. The Air Force was in charge of the Armed Forces Network. Now, there's no such thing as commercials when you were stationed overseas, unless they were German. And so the commercials you would see on the channel was all military, don't drink and drive because you'll hurt your soldiers and things of this nature, things that were just boring. And the TV shows were usually 6 months to a year behind. They tell you how bad it was. If any of y'all are wrestling fans, I don't know if you are or not, but this was way back in the day. Like I said, this was 92. And they were still showing some like WWF. This is way before it was WWE. WWF, and I'm talking old school, like wrestling that was a year or two behind. So some of these wrestlers never wrestled anymore, and they were just now showing it as new programming. You would watch maybe I think it was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it was a year behind what you would see in the States. So one of the things that we did is kind of crazy. When you're stationed over there, you have all the sights and sounds. You have the whole Europe at your fingertips. But see, you start missing things. Number one, you start missing a good Coke or a Diet Coke. And what I mean by this is in what they call the economy, in the German cities, you could go to McDonald's and get a Coke. But German Coke is completely different than American Coke because it's more sweet. And you never drank the water over there. That was the first thing they taught you, was never drink the water. Always drink water from a bottle that was bottled, or they loved seltzer water. They would serve seltzer water with everything. And if you're not a big seltzer water person, life kind of sucked. But I remember that there was just certain things, simple things in life that you missed. And I used to call back to the States, and I'd have my mom. Didn't care what it was. I said, just put a VCR tape in the machine, hit record, and just let it record until it was full. I don't care what's on it. And what it was she would record, and it sounds crazy, she recorded commercials. And she sent me, I remember a package one time. I had 2 or 3 cassettes in it, and it had all kinds of commercials. Now, guys, let me tell you something. You talk about a group of soldiers. Now, remember, we had the whole Europe at our fingertips. We could go to Switzerland. We could go to France. We could see all the sights, which we did. But we missed the things from home. In commercials, honestly, you don't think you miss commercials because when you're here in the States, you're watching commercials, you're like, oh my goodness, I wish this commercial would get over with so I could watch the programming. Come to find out, you missed the commercials. And so we'd watch a McDonald's commercial, and everybody would be salivating at the end of the commercial because like, oh man, what do you mean? They redid the Big Mac? And this is when they started, what was it, the new formula for Coke. We didn't know about it, right? So we hear about it through a commercial that they have the new formula of Coke. And we're like, what in the world? This is before the PX got it. So commercials, that was kind of interesting. Something else too, which was kind of cool with being stationed in Germany is if you're into sports, you're in a great place. Now, obviously, I don't play soccer, but soccer's huge, obviously, over there. But I got into softball. I got into playing Army softball and actually tried to do some traveling with the ball team, which was kind of cool because it kind of kept you busy on the weekends, you know. But I remember, oh Lord, I remember I signed up with our company softball team, and it was a Friday. I never forget it. We were working, and they turned around and they said, "Hey, we got a game this evening." And we're like, "Oh, okay, whatever. We'll get ready for the game." And so we get down to the ball fields, which is on base, and I see all these tents, like, you know, big, what you would call tailgating tents, all set up, people cooking and things of this nature. And I thought, well, this is crazy. Come to find out, it was a 48-hour tournament. And when I mean 48-hour tournament, I mean you're playing at all hours of the night. It's round robin type playing, you know, elimination. And so we all started playing about 5 o'clock that afternoon. And so, you know, this team will play this team and so on and so forth. And we were playing in brackets. And so our first game was at 6. We got over with, I think it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock. We got over with that game. We won. And so they said, okay, your next game will be 10 o'clock. Make sure you're ready. And so we're like, what in the world are we going to do? So obviously cooking, you're eating. There's adult beverages there. So you're partaking of adult beverages. And we played and finally got knocked out. It was about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning on early Sunday morning. We finally got knocked out of the round. And understand, when you were sleepy and you wasn't playing ball, you would curl up wherever you could curl up and catch you a power nap. Because at any time, they would tell you, hey, your team's up and you got to be ready to get out there on the field and play. And now they had four fields going at the same time. And this is the first time I ever experienced this. Now, like I said, we never won. We came in I think we came in like 9th or 10th out of the entire division, which I thought was pretty good. That was my first year of actually playing softball, but I loved it. I was actually the catcher. So because I played high school football, I could shoulder tackle with the best of them. You come barreling in from third base on me, you ain't running me over because I'm standing my ground, and you know we gonna lock horns. So, but I had a good time. So, but I also had some family members who were stationed over there at the same time, and they played on a traveling league. And I remember there would be weekends I would travel all over Germany with these guys just to watch them play ball, you know, and help them out, you know, whatever. And I'll never forget it when I first got to Germany. Now, understand, Germany is 7 hours ahead of the U.S. So depending on where you're at, like the Eastern time zone right now, as I'm doing this recording, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night in Germany, give or take. So when I first left the States to go to Germany, I flew out of Charleston, South Carolina, because I was able to come home for a minute, and then I flew out. And Charleston, when I left to go to Germany, Charleston was 98 degrees, and we were in our Class Bs, which means short sleeve shirt, green trousers. Now this, excuse me, this is before they changed uniform. Now they're back into what I call the World War II Browns, which I think is a good looking uniform. But we had the old Army greens back in the day. And so you had your light green Class B shirt on with your name tag, you know, short sleeve, your tie, your green pants, your dress shoes, and your cap. And that's how you had to travel. Couldn't travel in civilian clothes. And so I left Charleston, like I said, it was about 98 degrees. When I landed in Frankfurt, Germany, It was 60 degrees and raining. And dude, when I stepped off of that aircraft, I was freezing. I was like, what in the world did I get into? Completely different environment, completely different feeling of the weather and everything of this nature. And so that was my first experience in Germany was, very cool weather when it was hot when I left the States. So that weekend that I got with some family and they were doing travel ball and they're like, hey, come with us and do some travel ball because I haven't even been to my unit yet. My unit wasn't expecting me. I think I got there on a Friday and my unit wasn't expecting me to Monday. So I had, a weekend to kind of chill, to get my bearings before I showed up to report for duty. And first time I ever been on an airplane traveling other than, going to airborne school, the first time I ever been in a plane to travel. And so I didn't know anything about jet lag. And so I get in the van. Everybody, over there, if you have a family, you usually drive a minivan that you ship from the States. So I'm in the minivan. I'm 19 years old. Yeah, I'm 19 to 20 years old. I'm in a minivan. I'm cruising up with a bunch of sergeants, E5s, E6s, E7s. I'm just a E2 mosquito wing. I'm like, yes, sergeant, no, sergeant. They're laughing at me. They're like, no, dude, just call us by our first name. I'm like, yeah, this don't feel right. But anyway, story for a different day. So we're riding up the road and they're like, hey, get in the cooler and get you a beer. I'm looking around like, dude, I'm 19. They're like, yeah, drinking age in Europe is 16. You're good. So pulled me out a beer and having me a few beers going up the road. I forgot where we were going to. We drove a couple hours up the road, but anyway, get to the ball field, watching them play softball, so on and so forth, having a good time, doing my thing, whatever. Dude, jet lag kicked in, and it was like I wanted to do nothing but sleep. And I remember that we only went up there on that Friday. We came back Saturday, right? And I remember when I finally made it to my unit. They took me early on Sunday. They took me and I checked in. Well, they have a little room with a bed and stuff that they first give you. And that's just the holdover room. For anybody that's coming into the new unit, you kind of get put there until they can get you your own room and all this other stuff. But I didn't know this. So I went to sleep. I got there on Sunday mid-afternoon, went into the room, didn't even unpack stuff, laid down, fell asleep. And the next thing I know I'm hearing a knock on the door. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, okay, it's probably a couple hours. Well, no, it's Monday and it's about 11 a.m. And they're knocking on the door and I open up the door and they go, hey, are you Private Bottoms? I'm like, yeah. They said, well, you're supposed to be checking in with the unit. I said, it's still Sunday. And they said, no, it's 11 a.m. Monday. I slept for over 24 plus hours nonstop jet lag. And so I go, I'm nasty, I'm dirty, haven't had a shower, so didn't brush my teeth. I'm running down there and I'm like, can y'all give me 10 minutes to grab a shower? They're like, yeah, sure. Then I'm looking around going, I don't even know where the showers are. So reach into my duffel bag, pull out clean clothes, get changed, get down there to report to the unit. And the first sergeant and my family member knew each other and they started laughing. They're like, yep, your first time in Europe and you're late to formation. I went, I apologize. I didn't have an answer. And so that's how I started my time off in Germany. It was kind of cool. Not even there 6 months, made my E3 PFC. And then I made E4 right after that, E4 specialist, and was doing pretty good. And then, like I said, I got moved over to the 574th Supply Company. And then instead of working on a aviation unit, I was working in a supply company, but I was dealing with a tank farm. And what I mean by a tank farm is picture 6 to 8 large, very large fuel tanks that what we did was we did missions of filling up trucks and, running tractor trailers or, fuel trucks that you see these days over here in the States. We were running them up and down Germany, going to different units, helping units, with fuel operations and things of this nature. And so we had a large petroleum warehouse that we had everything from 55-gallon drums of antifreeze to oils, everything that you could think of that's a petroleum based, we had it. We stored it, we dealt with it, we moved it, so on and so forth. And so, let's see, where are we at? We're about 29 minutes into this. Okay. So I'll get ready to wrap this up for this episode. But anyway, so we're stationed there, and then it was 93. I want to say 93. And if you're from the South over here in the States, if you're from the South, I think it was around 1993, you had the blizzard of 93, as they called it, in the South. It was a lot of heavy snow that pretty much shut down everything in the South. And what I mean is Tennessee South. Well, during that same time, Mannheim, Germany, on average, gets about 6 to 8 inches of snow, because Mannheim, where I was at, we're in a valley. So we get a little bit of snow. Everybody else gets a lot of snow. This particular year, we got 3 foot of snow. And you talk about brutally being cold. Because I remember they pulled us out in formation. They told us, they called us out in formation. We're all in our, what we call the polar bear suits. This is the big green jackets with the big fur around the front of it and things of this nature. And I remember the first sergeant come walking out with his cup of coffee. And he set his coffee down to call the unit to attention and do all that. And when he picked up his coffee, it was frozen. And so they suspended all operations. No military operations are going to happen unless it's extreme emergency. So everybody is confined to the barracks. Except for us. We had to go and check on the tank farm. So if you can imagine 3 foot of snow, depends on where you're at. I've never saw 3 foot of snow unless I was in Switzerland attempting to ski, which I'm come to find out that God did not intend me to ever ski. But I never saw this. So we're taking our Humvees, and I remember we had a motor grader from the engineering unit was in front of us, and they were plowing the street in front of us so we can move, because it was treacherous driving. Germans, they didn't pre-treat their roads. They didn't really care, because if it snowed like that, they stayed inside and everybody was happy. But we had to travel 45 minutes up to where our tank farm was. And so we get there, and we're checking on our fuel systems. Now, obviously, if you've ever dealt with fuel, even in fuel at a gas station, there are filter systems built in. And the reason why is because most fuels will have some type of sediment in the bottom of it, or it will have some water in it. And that's typically because when they're opening up the caps to fill up the tanks, there's water and debris gets in there. So you have sediment at the bottom, and then you usually have water at the top. So you have to use a filter system. And this filter system is very similar to a HEPA system, except it picks up very fine particles of debris. And it's designed to absorb water, and especially designed for to allow fuel to pass through it, but it'll absorb the water. All right. And so we're having to check our tanks and things of this nature. And then we get ready to go to the warehouse. Remember, I just said a few minutes ago that we carried everything 55-gallon drums of antifreeze. Well, it was so cold in Germany, ladies and gentlemen, and I know this is hard to believe, but we had 55-gallon drums of antifreeze that gelled up and busted. All right. Wasn't completely solid. It was solidified from just how cold it was. And I'll never forget this, because as you were walking in the snow, and like if you went into the office that had a heater system and you were thawing out or whatever, and you go walking out with your wet shoes, you would literally stick to the concrete. It was that cold, instantly freeze. And I remember we ended up getting snowed in there. Now, our office space that we had was what we called a shack. It was called the shack. And what it was it was a 2-room, literally shack with 3 windows, a bathroom, and a little kitchenette. It had a desk and 2 couches, and it had a heater system. And the heater system ran off of a fuel line that was connected to one of the what we called the trash tanks, because we would burn the trash fuel, the fuel that we couldn't use for anything else. And so we were stuck there, right? Phone lines are dead, so we had to set up radio communications to communicate back to the barracks to let our command staff know that, hey, we're stuck like Chuck. We ain't going anywhere. And so we spent like 2 or 3 days there. 8 MREs. Didn't really shower. Like I said, had a bathroom, one bathroom. So if you can imagine, there's about 6 or 8 of us, a couple of females mixed in. We're all having to share a bathroom. And, you're rotating. Obviously you give all the ladies the couches. You're taking chairs, you're taking the floor, you're taking wherever you can, and you're running that heater as hot as it'll get in there to keep you warm. And that's how we spent like 24 to 48 hours while it was snowing. We had bottled water, we had MREs. That was pretty much our life. The office people, they stayed in the office. Now you could walk over to the office, it was fine, but what I'm saying was, the living conditions wasn't anything like we wanted them to be at the barracks. But hey, it worked out. So that was Germany. Now, there was a couple of deployments while I was there. I may talk about them next time. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this one down. So hopefully you enjoyed it today. I just like going back and just talking about the old days. So, but the main thing I want you to take away from this is this is National Suicide Prevention Month. 988 is the phone number. And if you're in crisis or anything, I want you to reach out, okay? I want you to reach out. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. I hope you had a good time. And like I said, if you want to be a part of the show, reach out to me. Love to have you here, all right? So we'll catch you next time on the RB Experience. You guys be good, and y'all have a great weekend.